I'm doing the intuitive patterns for the month of June 2021. So I have a new computer and I have been having trouble with my microphone with this new computer. So I'm actually trying this video with the microphone that is in the new computer. Feedback would be great. It seems clearer to me and it seems like it has less of a hollow sound to it, but let me know if you can't hear it, all right? So in the intuitive patterns for the month of June 2021, what I do is I take a lot of different tarot decks and I pull cards and with the intention of how can they help describe the energy patterns that are happening for the month of June. So if you want to see the cards, you can obviously go on to my blog or my Facebook fan page or my Facebook personal page or on my website under my intuitive patterns for the month of June, and you will be able to see the list of the cards. I will refer to some of them in this, but it's kind of slow and draggy to say every single card that I'm working with. But here we go. Just as last month we had repeating cards, this month also we have repeating sorrow cards. I can think of many things that can cause such an emotional pattern. The U.S. pulling troops out of Afghanistan, and that will destabilize an already dysfunctional society into further stress and breakdown. As I am writing this on May 12th, rockets are going out of Israel into Pakistan. Power games continue to cause human suffering, and COVID in India is taking a terrible toll. Watching it unfold is difficult for many, yet somehow we have to find a pathway through to keep going. Sometimes, for long-term healing to happen, there has to be an outpouring of grief and rage at what is happening, and that makes everyone wake up and feel that change is possible. Here we are in a beautiful summer. We want to allow our hearts to open and love to spring forth, and some of those cards do reflect that. There is a rhythm between life and death. It is forever pulsating in our body and life. We are never certain if the whims of fate will take us out or give us another day. Sometimes I think that maturity comes from stepping out of the Pollyanna mentality of our youth. But how do we embrace the truth of this density without succumbing to the horror of it? Skunk reminds us that we can assert ourselves and let our reputation speak for itself without ego. When we learn this important lesson, then others will respect us. This month, attract those who walk a similar pathway through space and time. Just know that we also can repel others whose path is different than our own. Notice the body language of others. Are we setting teeth on edge and causing others to take a more aggressive stance around us? It is difficult at this time in history to take a position of non-attachment. We may have to listen to the woes of others and do it in a way that does not feel as if others are dumping on us, but instead are actively engaged in a process of attempting to share. The mountain lion tells us that we have to make choices in our life and step onto a path whether anyone wishes to follow or not. The process of leadership requires us to tell the truth. Recent events have shattered our perception of what we thought we could trust and believe in. Those that lead without conscience put their followers into tyranny. It is very frightening to take on leadership positions at this time. And yet, someone has to stand up for the people. The bat reminds us that we are in a brutal test to see if we are worthy to lead and be stewards of this planet. So far, we have been failing, but we can make a change. We need to be willing to do what it takes. It is the reminder that if we let others lead, we will never find our true destiny and purpose. At some point, we have to make big choices and step up onto our own path. To get to our goals, we have to be bold and determined to succeed. We cannot let fear stop us. We have to have that fire within burn brighter than concern. So, I am doing this video on the 1st of June. Sorry that I'm slightly late in putting this out. And I wanted to kind of do a few addendums to this. So at this point, it looks like there's going to be some changes in the hierarchy in the government of Israel, which probably is very much needed as this destabilization of places like Afghanistan, because we're pulling out, becomes really important. We are having more shootings and it just has to stop. I mean, we just have to say, this is my position. It's like, I have no problem that I think that our government says we can have guns, so we can have guns. But I do think that if you regulate fishing licenses and you have tests for driver's licenses, you should have tests for gun licenses. And I think that people should be really clear about the laws of each individual state. I mean, I was raised in Texas, and the Texas laws for guns are really, really different. And you have the right to shoot somebody that comes on your property, and it's not considered murder, because of how the laws are in Texas. But if you're not in Texas and you happen to be a Texan, you probably should be aware of what the laws are in other states. So I think this is about, we need to educate people, like, when is it appropriate to use a gun and when is it not appropriate? And I think there's a lot of times that people are using them and it's not appropriate. I think that, people are using them because of initiations into groups, or trying to be tough, or because they were abused themselves and they're feeling threatened. And so, but it's kind of like the same thing again. If you're a scared dog will bite, and you could hurt somebody. And the same thing is if you have a gun. So it's like, I don't think it's the problem of guns. I think it's about the regulation of guns. And I think people need to be educated. I think it just comes down to education. My father had guns in our house, and there were rules. There were big rules, and there were big laws, and there was a lot of instruction on what to do and what not to do, and don't ever do this. And I think it's about responsibility, that parents have to teach morals and ethics and values. And I think that the government does have to regulate that. If you have to learn the laws of how to drive a car, you should have laws around anything that is complicated enough to cause physical harm. Let's just say it like that, because a car could be used as a weapon. Absolutely. So, I say this at the end just because it's getting out of control. So when I wrote this article, which was the middle of May, it hadn't quite had not quite gotten so crazy with everybody shooting guns off, and we just need to make that stop. It's changing how our youthful children are not feeling safe, and I think that creates a stress level in children that they should not have to be dealing with. And I think it is adults' responsibility to help children feel safe and secure. I think it's very important. And I think we are, kind of testing some laws around, what is, national terrorism that's happening. And we have to start looking at each other as equals and come together more. So when I now am officially in June and I look at the cards, what I can tell you is that the cards were saying, if we don't grow up, we are going to create a lot of sorrow, and we create an emptiness, that we have to have the power of a mountain lion. We have to stand up and make a stink like the skunk if we need to. And we're going to go through a gauntlet, which is the bat, which is testing us to see if we're worthy of leading. If you're worthy of leading, you have to create rules and structures and strategies. In order to manifest physical power, we have to find a rhythm that is constructive to life, not destructive to life. I think that there's a lot of abundance that is there. I think if we can move the world towards peace, and I mean peace around the garbage, peace around getting rid of plastic. We need to, handle our own garbage. We need to create systems that basically get rid of all plastics and break them down, and it should be regulated. I really believe that. I mean, how else are we going to do this? And it has to be regulated in other countries too. The cards are also saying that we have to take charge, because a lot of things have to be decided within the next 10 years, which is the aeon, that we have to make some final decisions in respect to the past. We have to take some new currents in respect to the future. The Three of Crystals says there's waves and waves and waves of sadness going through everybody right now. And the Grandmother of Wands is trying to burn off that negativity so that we can have the clarity of the Four of Crystals. It's time to listen. It's time to break through. It's time to cultivate pleasure and joy. And I was happy to see so many people out and about on the coast and walking on the beach and people having masks off. I was thrilled to death. And I hope that that maintains, because the thought of going back into quarantine is more than I can possibly imagine. I appreciate everybody listening. I hope this sort of makes sense. And I'll see you next month.